Hi all, I'm Thomas and this is Power Platform Done Quick. Today I'd like to show you some basic expressions when doing cloud flows. It's not going to be a lot, it's just going to be the basic stuff you need, and that will basically get you around everywhere when doing these cloud flows. What I've chosen as an example is this Office 365 action, get users, where you search for a user. There we go. So because I'm logged in with my account, it's going to search in my company, Droid Agency, Active Directory, and search for users there. And I'll search for my name. And, it'll give me a bunch of results. So I can test it real quick. Oops, remove this. There we go. Continue. So. Okay, and here we go. Now, when you run a test and you run a flow, you actually get the output of each action here, and you can see an overview of the value output. But to really get an understanding of how this works, click the Show Raw Outputs. So this is everything you get from an action. You'll see it's a JSON. If you don't know what JSON is, it's pretty simple. JSON is just a way of writing data, and this is key value kind of thing going on. So the keys here, you can search for a key and you get the corresponding value. So it's a way to structure the data. And all what you see here is the output of an action. And it starts up and you get a bunch of output. And at one point, and this is true for almost every action, you get a body value. And this gives you a new JSON file. So you can get this body here. And in this particular action, you also have a value. You have a value object for most actions as well, actually. Now, let's do a compose action here, just to see where we're going. This, if you don't know about the compose action, it's just basically a dummy action that takes an expression and evaluates it. You get all these dynamic contents, and those are, of course, always handy. But if I, for example, choose display name, it puts the compose into a apply to each loop. This is a very standard thing. This happens a lot. And the reason to why this is true is because the search for user returns a list of values. So it returns you might get 2 Thomas Petersons in the same company, so you get a list. In this case, there's only one, but it's still a list of 1. So what I'd have to do in order to extract the display name is make sure that I get the first instance every time. And I'll do this here. I'll just get away. Okay, the expressions. The most important action is the outputs action. Now this outputs just gives you everything I showed you before, the raw output, and it gives you the JSON file. And I'll show you how to traverse it in a bit. Always, when doing these actions, I rename them to something without a space in, because it sometimes bugs out. Okay. So I'll output, and I'll just put the name of the action. There we go. Now this would give me the raw output. Easy peasy. So as you can see, this corresponds to this here. So the question is, how do I traverse this, and how do I go looking for the value I actually want? In this exercise, I want this display name value, Thomas Peterson. What I'll do is I'll copy the output and I'll go to a JSON formatter just to get an overview. I like this one. It's what I usually use. I mean, they're all good, so whatever. And there we go. Okay, so all of this stuff I don't want. what I want is inside the body. So I'll have to go to the body and then the value. So this is what I actually want. I want to find this. This is, as I said, a list or an array. Okay, and in order to do that, I'll use these square brackets and these apostrophes here. So I can do body and then I can do value like this. But there's actually a shortcut, something we like to call syntactic sugar. Oh, whoops, sorry. I can do a / just like going into a file, and this should give me the value. So let's test this. Okay, this is perfect. Now I'm getting this this list of JSON objects. So where I basically am is I have all of this data here. So now the next step, because this is a list, I would like to tell Power Automate which entry in the list I'd like, and I'd like the first one in this case. Of course, do be careful. Sometimes you get two people with the same name, so you should take that into account and think about that stuff. Now, in order to take the first entry, I do square brackets and a 0, because lists are 0 indexed in programming. Now, note now, it's the exact same data, just without the square brackets. So now I have the JSON value. And this is perfect. Now I can just take the display name and as you might figured, we have a JSON object. So I'll get the key and corresponding value with the same syntax as earlier. Okay. Awesome. And that's basically the basic structure, and this is always what you do. You never want to use variables. Actually, you want to use variables as little as possible when doing these cloud flows. Before I leave you, I want to show you one last operator. And the operator I'd like to show you is this question mark here. The question mark is great if the value of the search user action returns an empty list, if there can't find any users, this here would fail because it can't find any index 0. So of course it would fail. But if I do the question mark, it would return null instead of failing. So let me show you what I mean. Let's try without the question mark and just search for something insane. There we go. Template can't get the 0 input. But if we add a question mark here, it'll be okay with not having a 0 indexed thing. But we also have to add the question mark here because it won't be able to find the display name either. So doing this. It just returns something empty. And that's a lot of the times better than having the Cloudflow to fail. Right, I hope you learned anything.